So many trucks, so far to go. How do they stay on time? We'll find out this week on Motoring 2001.
TSN's Motoring 2001 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.
If you've ever wondered if there's any such thing as a base entry-level Porsche, you're looking at it. This is the brand new Boxster, sporting a brand new color for Porsche. How do you like it? We'll talk more about this car later on, but first we're going to slow things down just a tad and talk about trucks, those 18-wheelers. And if you think there's more trucks on the highways today than ever before, you are right. Manufacturers are selling trucks as fast as they can build them. And as we're about to see, many companies today are on just-in-time inventory, and this is putting pressure on trucking companies to make sure that their trucks are in the right place at the right time.
The trucking business is booming. Manufacturers estimate they have built and sold close to 270,000 new trucks over the past 2 years. Competition is fierce. Travelers Transportation Services in Brantford, Ontario have over 100 trucks in its fleet. They've seen the future, and the future is hauling freight on the information highway. It now manages its entire fleet by satellite.
We got wind of the satellite system called Qualcomm is the name in the United States, and CanCom, I believe, is a distributor here in Canada. And we started looking at that in 1992. And what we saw was something that we really liked, and we believed that it worked, but it was very expensive. So as we were growing, we thought this might be a good time to bring it in. And instead of having 5 people answering telephone calls and spending probably half their day talking to drivers, they would be able to spend that time booking freight and talking to customers. And so we put that system in about 1.5 years ago, and we presently have it installed in every truck that leaves basically Southern Ontario, all of our highway trucks. In the old days, telephones, that was it. You know, we'd say, okay, you got to call us in the morning before 10 o'clock. You know, let us know where you are if you're on schedule, because our customer's going to be calling. And normally what happened, they would call, but at the same time, the guy that didn't call is the same guy that you wanted to call you, because your customer is saying, hey, well, where is he? Or don't ship it there, it's got to go here now. So you're kind of keeping your fingers crossed all the time that, you know, it's going to work the way you want it to. So basically a computer talking to a computer in the truck. And, you know, it goes to a modem down to a bunch of dishes that shoot it up to the satellite up in the sky there. I think it's UNIC is the satellite there, ANIC or UNIC. And from there it goes to our tractor. And then our driver, he communicates back and forth with a keyboard, very similar to a computer keyboard, other than the fact that it has a screen that is running along the top of it, so he can actually read the messages that we are sending him.
Okay, what about your loads coming out of Fort Payne, Alabama? They're heading your Alabama City towards the end of the week?
If it has not been cleared by noon, we're going to see if we can make arrangements to get the trailer out of there, take the freight off on our dock, and then send the bonded freight back up. Okay?
Okay, basically in our dispatch outfit here, we have an in- and outbound dispatcher who look after the drivers themselves. Then there's 3 of us that do customer service, which is booking the in- and outbound freight, including our sales department upstairs that are also booking freight. We are basically on the hot seat. We are at the decision point where the customer's always calling us. We have to make the decision of booking the freight right then and there. Basically, we can see at this point how to locate trucks for loads. We can take a quick look here and find out how many trucks we have in the Los Angeles area, out in Seattle, up in northern Canada, or on the eastern seaboard.
You've got red and green in there too, right?
Yes. Green sort of means that they're empty. Red's that they're waiting for loads, and the blue means they're all on the move and rolling.
I've been driving for about 10 years, and it's a great benefit. We get more sleep that way. Like when we get in, we offload. You're not sure where you're loading. You can just go lay down and go to bed, go to sleep. When they got a load for you, they just beep you and you wake up.
How about a safety factor or emergencies?
I haven't had to use it in any emergencies yet, but I imagine it would come in great, especially if it's flat on the side of the road. You don't have to get out and try and find a phone. Just beep them a message, they'll find you.
It doesn't feel like Big Brother?
No, they're not spying on you. They're just there when you need them.
Nice steering wheel, eh? Wish I could afford the rest of the car. More on steering wheels later on Kenzie's Corner.
According to Buick, this new Rendezvous is neither minivan, SUV, nor is it a conventional car. Rather, it takes specific attributes of each and blends them in a new crossover vehicle, one that's offered with 5, 6 or 7 seats. Rather than adopting a hard, very angular approach to style, Buick emphasise what they say is the evolution of the brand. From the front, it's the open, almost toothy-looking grille that will define future products. Look aside, the Rendezvous has the feel of a Buick. Big, cushy and comfortable. This aspect is best demonstrated in the third seat, as it will, unlike most, accommodate a full-sized adult comfortably. Inside, the Rendezvous is every inch a Buick. First of all, you get a very regal set of gauges, pun intended. You also get power locks, windows, mirrors, cruise control, the OnStar system, so if you do get lost, they'll tell you where to go very politely. You get a decent up-level radio, dual-zone climate controls, and nicely padded leather bucket seats in both the front and middle rows. All in all, an environment that's very easy to live with. However, the best part, they did look over Aztek's shoulder, but fortunately, for a short period of time. In the middle here, you can accommodate a full-size laptop computer, couple of cup holders, best of all, spot for your cell phone that comes with its own power outlet. And for you ladies, well, at floor level, there's a spot for your handbag. Behind that prominent grille sits the same 3.4-litre V6 that powers GM's minivan offerings. It's tried and true and delivers adequate power, 185 horsepower and 210 pounds-feet of torque to satisfy Rendezvous's capacity. While not fast, the motor is smooth and suitably quiet until you pour on the power. At this point, it makes quite a racket as it reaches for redline. The only transmission offered is GM's typical 4-speed automatic. It's smooth and seamless in operation, and it helps to offset the wide-open throttle noise by keeping the engine in the sweet spot, negating the need to reach that fever-pitch crescendo. You know, one of the options that's well worth the money is the Versatrack all-wheel drive system. Now, under normal circumstances, the power is relayed through the front wheels. However, if they begin to slip, up to 70% is gradually relayed back to the rear wheels. Now, while this action does very little for you off-road, it certainly adds a great deal of on-road stability, something that's very welcome in winter. The ride and handling characteristics lean very much towards the comfort side of the scale. A McPherson strut front design and a sophisticated short long arm system in back brings a compliant ride along with quite a lot of understeer. Thankfully, anti-roll bars back and front help control the amount of roll, keeping it well within acceptable limits considering the Rendezvous's tall stance. The rack and pinion steering likewise has a slightly soft on-centre feel, but manages to deliver decent feedback. That said, the run through the pylons was still somewhat of a tiptoe affair. You know, when they designed the Rendezvous, the one thing they forgot to do was to put an exterior release for the tailgate. If you don't have the key, you've got to go all the way around the front and push a silly button so you can get in. Fortunately, I have the key. Once it's released, you'll notice that with the third seat up, there's very little trunk space. However, fold this thing down and it grows appreciably. The really neat part, beneath the floor here, there's a whole bunch of cubby holes, and the best part, in here, there's an air hose, and it runs off the air compressor for the rear air shocks. You simply take this little cover off here, screw this thing on there, and you can blow any of the 4 tyres up.
Stopping power comes from a four-wheel disc brake design that's overseen by a good anti-lock system. A series of full tilt stops yielded an average stopping distance of 34.5 metres from 80k, little in the way of fade and a pedal that retained its initial crispness. On the safety side, the Rendezvous features dual front and side airbags, 3-point seat belts and headrests in all seating positions, as well as those active items already noted.
You know, the Rendezvous's longer wheelbase, larger interior, third row seating, and this racetrack all-wheel drive combine to bring a capable and comfortable package. Perhaps the biggest irony is that while this is based on the Aztec platform, it goes to prove that to be a crossover, you don't have to be ugly.
Time to update our long-term Honda Insight. If you're looking for a commuter car that is friendly to the environment, the best gas mileage on the road, and a hoot to drive, you gotta like the Insight. I've always said if you're going to turn on the younger generation to green cars, the cars have to be cool. They can't look like an Econobox. Well, from the thumbs up we've been getting from young and old, the Insight is scoring big. Trouble is, Honda has only sold just over 100 of these cars. I'll have some thoughts on that on our next update.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns battery chargers. We have 2 in our shop, a big one that we wheel over to the cars and that's capable of putting out high amperage, and this small unit that you see right here that only puts out 10 amps and is very portable. Now this one we quite often loan out to customers who come into the shop and tell us they've left lights on in their car, maybe a glove box open, a door slightly ajar, or the trunk courtesy lamp. Maybe their children have pushed the map light and left it on overnight. Whatever it is, even one small lamp can kill a battery overnight. Now, the worst thing you can possibly do in terms of the lifespan of the alternator on your vehicle is boost the vehicle and drive it to bring that battery up. An alternator on your vehicle is intended to keep a fully charged battery fully charged and to support all the accessories on the vehicle. It was never intended to fully recharge a completely dead battery, but a lot of us use it for that by doing just what I said, boosting a dead car and then driving it. Worst thing you can do for your alternator. A couple of other tips: when you're hooking up your charger, make sure that you've got all the connections proper. Put your clips on first, red on positive, black on negative. Make sure the charger's set up to the correct voltage and amperage, and then plug in the 110. One other tip that I'll give you: if your battery is completely discharged or completely dead in sub-zero weather, remove the battery from the vehicle and take it inside a heated area, allow it to come up to room temperature, and then begin your charging process if the temperature is below zero. That's your Midas tip of the week.
It's a 1962 Sabra. It's made in Israel. There was 110 made originally. There's only about 54 that we know of right now in existence. It won some sports car Grand Prix in France, Belgium, and Ireland, and actually raced this type of car, raced against the great Carroll Shelby, and caused him to go home and build the Shelby Cobras. They were beating him, and he was a little upset. So it's quite a unique history in this little car. The engine in this one is a Toyota 1600. They used to come with a Ford 1700 console engine, which in competition form put about 130 horsepower out, which is quite phenomenal for 1700 cc's. They had a ZF standard transmission in it and 4-link suspension in the back. This one has actually got a 5-speed with the 1600 cc Toyota engine, and it's quite tractable and very fast for 4 cylinders. They built this in 1961 to 64, and there was probably because of the being made in Israel and partly made in Britain, and they were putting the two cars pieces here and pieces there, and so just the logistics, I think, of the two continents trying to put them together. My daughter, when she was 16, said she wanted a sports car. We found this in Camrose, Alberta. It wasn't drivable at the time. We spent about a year putting it together, getting it ready for her. She's been driving it since she was 17, and that was in about 5-6 years ago now. And, she actually drives it with the top off all summers, rain or shine. It's an open car. She says it's got to go topless.
It was back in 1997 when Porsche introduced the Boxster, a car styled after the mid-engine race cars like the 550 Spider. It was dubbed the Boxster because of its style and the Boxster engine, which Porsche has used for many years in the 911. Our test vehicle is considered an entry-level Porsche, equipped with a 2.7-liter 6-cylinder engine which pumps out 217 horses and a nice throaty 192 pounds-feet of torque. Now, although automatic transmissions are becoming more popular with Porsches, trust me, the 5-speed manual is the only way to go. With the engine situated just ahead of the rear axle, this is not a car for Mr. Fix-It. Even the Porsche engineers have to access the engine from underneath the vehicle. I hate to admit it, but I do have a pet peeve with this new car. You see, I'm partial to Porsches, and usually I'm listening to nothing but that sweet engine when I'm driving. But hey, this is going to put you back between 60 and 70 grand. You'd think they'd have a CD player as standard equipment, but no, they got a cassette deck. I don't get it. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, don't get me started. I still haven't forgiven him for taking out 8 tracks. Anyhow, what we want to talk about this week is a component called a tower brace. It's something that you're seeing more and more on brand new vehicles. It's been around for a few years with the performance guys. They like to add them to their cars to beef up the front end if they're driving them in slalom events, Solo 1, or some guys who just drive on the street but drive briskly like to add this component to their car to beef up the front end. Let's have a look at the Suzuki XL7, a vehicle that comes factory equipped with a tower brace, and show you another car that doesn't have one and just exactly where it goes on the vehicle. Here's the component that we're talking about right here, the tower brace. It's a tubular brace that goes across from one suspension tower to the other and adds a lot of rigidity to the front end of the vehicle. Now remember that this area of the car over here, the inner fender area, is a loaded area of the car. It's a weight carrying area of the car. The McPherson strut is bolted into this area. There's a coil spring underneath there, and all the weight on the corner of this vehicle is applied to this inner fender area. So as you go over bumps and drive the vehicle hard, these suspension towers tend to move a little bit inward, and this brace adds a lot of rigidity and stability to the front end of the vehicle. It ties these two towers together, keeps them apart, prevents the camber from going a little bit negative as load comes on the vehicle, and adds a lot of structural strength to the vehicle. Here's the suspension tower area in this particular vehicle. This vehicle does not use a tower brace, but it's built very heavily in this area. There's a lot of gussets in this area, and quite often you'll find much heavier gauge steel used in this particular area of the car. Now remember that all the weight that's on the front end of this vehicle is being supported through this tower. There's a coil spring under here and the McPherson strut under here bolted to this tower. It's a load carrying area of the car. You want to keep an eye on this area of the car and make sure that it doesn't get heavily corroded. If you see corrosion coming out around these seams or any signs of corrosion weakening in this area, that's something you want to pay attention to and have repaired as soon as possible. I've seen older front-wheel drive cars sitting on the side of the road listing badly to one side and actually seen this tower break right through. It'll bust away from the rest of the body completely and smash the hood, buckle the hood, and you'll see them sitting on the side of the road waiting for the tow truck to come along. You don't want to let that happen to your car, so think about using a good quality rust inhibitor right from the word go when you get that new car, and have it reapplied every few years down the road to prevent that area from corroding. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2001.
I read a report the other day, you might have seen it too, that some driving instructors are no longer recommending the 10-to-2 hand position on the steering wheel. The theory is that if you're in the middle of an airbag crash, your own arm might be blown off the steering wheel and you'd punch yourself in the face. Well, trust me folks, if you're in the middle of an airbag crash, that's about the last thing you got to worry about. There's a lot going on in an airbag crash. Hand position isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. Besides, nobody who knows what they're talking about has been teaching 10-to-2 for at least 20 years. Well, maybe in a race car when there's no room to put your hands anywhere else and you only have to move the wheel this much. In a road car, 2/4 is where it's at. It's where it's always been at. This way you can keep your shoulders against the seat. You can do a 90-degree turn either direction, no problem at all. In the odd case where you need more than 90-degree steering, you grab the wheel and pull it around like this. No problem. With 2/4 you also know exactly where straight ahead is at all times, equal pressure on the rims, and you know exactly that you're heading straight. With 10-to-2, you might be a little bit off center, and in an emergency avoidance situation, you want to know where straight ahead is. Another problem with 10-to-2 is there's a tendency for your shoulders to lift off and your head to bend into the corner. This is not a stable way to do your steering. Now, some of you may have even used some of these other steering wheel grips. There's the one-handed crotch grip. You don't want to be doing that. There's the famous one-arm limp wrist approach. You really don't want to be doing that. And I even saw a guy the other day driving like this. I have no idea what that one was all about. Now, some of you might wonder, well, how do I hold the steering wheel when I've got my coffee cup going and my cell phone going? Don't get me started. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Needless to say, I've had a blast driving this new Boxster. And you know, even though I'm partial to 911s, unlike other Porsche models, this Boxster is not a 911 wannabe. It has developed its own personality and brought new customers into the showroom. But you know, for a company dedicated to building sports cars, it's hard to believe that in the very near future we're going to be checking out the Porsche Cayenne, a Porsche sports utility. Sad, isn't it? Well, really the only thing sad is I gotta get this car back to Porsche. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
TSN's Motoring 2001 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.